If he sows in the field of flesh, he will reap from it a harvest of corruption. In our day, my brethren, the flesh has taken over. Much of the energy of humankind goes from the spirit nowadays into the flesh. So in practice, the spirit is orientated towards something of a different nature from itself, and well able to destroy it, the bit that will go on. As we see in this gospel, the spirit had gone on of this man who had died, and the same spirit was called back. It's kind of important because the big issue is the spirit, its quality, the way it's nurtured and cared for. Each spirit is an immortal jewel. The Lord would have died for one soul only, yours. In debate, in people who are orientated to the flesh in general, the material, this world, to obliterate the question of the possibility of ruining the spirit in a possible afterlife, a great barrage of ever-increasing decibels will be put up in such a way that in a whole fog nothing will be heard. The soul secretly is nervous. So should you be in a conversation in which this is taking place, observe the signs of actual secret admission. The person before you is nervous, you're getting close to the bone. You will be insulted. Something vaguely linked with your problem will be put before your eyes. Anything to avoid the central issue. But actually, you're on the winning side. In serene possession of your truth, the truth, all you have to do is wait until all the venom has come out. And then calmly, you point out one point which has not been observed. This: what if you have an immortal soul? Then the answer will be, again, a great volume of decibels. You're getting close to the nerve. Now, logically, what's going on there is this. This person before you is going to tell you this: I don't believe in such nonsense. Your fairy tales belong where they do. Children, the same realm as Santi and the fairies of old. By the way, you know, in Ireland, they build motorways around fairy castles. Interesting. Close the parenthesis. Well, at that point, you can tell your man, your logic is going along these lines. You believe something in your head. What you believe in your head is in your head. Are you absolutely sure that what is in your head can change the nature of the cosmos? Immediately you'll find a further outburst. You're getting close to the nerve. You pursue. Okay, I will use your own argument. Science. You can lead him or her to, for instance, a YouTube, which you might be able to maneuver and manipulate, and leave the person before the screen and move away so that he hasn't got anyone to talk to. Because alone, it doesn't quite work the same way. A good one would be one done some years ago by, yes, the BBC. It was a neutral documentary, and it was based on a very interesting case. These being interviewed were experts in their realm and not in any way believing Christians, as far as I know. It's the case of Pamela Reynolds. It was down on the other side, I think New Zealand, it could have been Australia, and she had a lethal aneurysm. Her days were counted. No surgeon could do a thing because of its location in the brain. However, one brilliant young surgeon had an idea. There might be a way, but for it to work, the person must be clinically dead. The person must be clinically dead. You know what that means? All the blood had to be drained out and life support would come in. So the person was put to sleep and to clinical death. And then they could start drilling. What happened? Pamela, the real Pamela, the immortal bit, moved out of her body, looked down at the operating table, heard the conversation. They had a job getting a vein sufficiently large to drain the blood. And one of the surgeons said, "Try the leg." And they did. Then she heard the sound of the drill. It was rather like a dental thing. But because by now she was dead, her soul moved on. Now, there's no point in going on to what she saw, that's another story. But she was happy with where she was going, because she was a Christian. Suddenly, she was given to understand, on the other side, that she was not allowed to enter, but she had to go back. And she was pushed back into her body and felt an awful, excruciating pain, because the body was still hurting, obviously. She eventually came to and reported on what she had seen, all the details. Now, when the medical team heard all this, they were somewhat flummoxed. That is not possible. That person, the brain of that person, was completely dead. And they knew it because the pulses on the monitor showed it. There was no life left. What does that mean? And they themselves saw the problem for science. Do you see it? It's a proof, unwittingly, that the soul has its own independent existence without depending on the brain after death. Take it or leave it. But if you've got a person before you who actually doesn't want just to win a point, but to know the truth, that person, if he's honest with himself, will sit down and ask himself, oh, what if that did happen? Does it perhaps mean that my soul, whether I want it or not, will go on once my brain is dead? You haven't raised your voice, you've just pointed out an issue. The issue, the one big issue which Satan will not allow men of our day to face, because if they do, he's lost them. Keep them moving. Would you like a story? Would you like a story to make your hair stand on end? Would you like a story to make your hair stand on end and turn green? Are you sitting uncomfortably? Then I shall begin. This is told by the annals of the Jesuits. It's not a fairy tale, it's fact, alas. It occurred in 1590 and was vouched for by trustworthy witnesses. It was in Latin America. Remember, the Jesuits conquered great chunks of Latin America for Jesus. By the way, The Mission is a very good film, a tearjerker. Not far from Lima dwelt a Christian lady who had 3 maidservants, one of whom, called Martha, was a young Indian of about 16 years. Martha was a Christian, but little by little she grew cool, and by the way, it's not cool in hell, in the devotion she had at first displayed. Now that's the case of many a Christian. They can be on fire for a while and get cool. So this lady became negligent in her prayers and light and coquettish and wanton in her conversations. That means bad talk. Having fallen dangerously ill, she received the last sacraments. Notice, she received the last sacraments. After this serious ceremony, during which she had shown very little piety, she said, smiling to her 2 fellow servants, that in the confession she had just made, she had taken good care not to tell all her sins to the priest. Frightened by this language, the girls reported it to their mistress, who by dint of exhortations and threats obtained from the sick girl a sign of repentance and the promise to make a sincere and Christian confession. Martha confessed then over again and died shortly afterward. Scarcely had she breathed her last when her corpse emitted an extraordinary and intolerable stench. They were obliged to remove it from the house to a shed. The dog in the courtyard, usually a quiet animal, howled piteously as if he were undergoing torture. After the interment, the burial, the lady, according to custom, was dining in the garden in the open air, when a heavy stone fell suddenly onto the centre of the table with a horrible crash and caused all the table settings to bounce, but without breaking any article. One of the servants, having occupied the room in which Martha had died, was awakened by frightful noises. All the furniture seemed to be moved by an invisible force and thrown to the floor. We understand how the servant did not continue to occupy that room. Her companion ventured to take her place, but the same scenes were renewed. Then they agreed to spend the night together there. This time, they distinctly heard Martha's voice, and soon that wretched girl appeared before them in the most horrible state and all on fire. She said that by God's command she had come to reveal her condition to them, that she was damned for her sins of impurity, and for the sacrilegious confessions she had continued to make until death. She added, "Tell